I'm Mike Haldeman, Field Sales Agronomist with Growmark, and today we're going to be looking at the early reproductive phases in soybeans, from R1 to R4, beginning bloom to full pod. The first reproductive stage that the soybean plant goes through is R1, or beginning bloom. Beginning bloom is when you see a flower or blossom at any node along the soybean plant. In this case, you can see you've got numerous blossoms throughout the plant, so it's definitely in R1. Now, these stages can also overlap with one another and will vary throughout the field from plant to plant. If you've got over half of the field in a particular stage, that would be what you would call the reproductive stage for the field. This plant here, you can see it has blossoms further up the plant. To get to R2, you need to have a fully open blossom at any of the two fully developed upper nodes where you've got a fully developed leaflet. So with this plant, you've got a leaflet here is your top fully developed node, and then your second down right here. So you can see you've got blossoms at the top two nodes. So this plant would be in what we call R2, or full bloom. As we move from the R2 stage, or full bloom stage, into R3, we need to look at the top four nodes in the bean plant. The top node being, again, with a fully expanded leaflet, would be 1. We've got node 2, node 3, and now node 4. And as you look at those top four nodes, you look for a pod, a beginning pod that's about 3/16 of an inch long. So very small pod development. And as you see, you're seeing those in 3 of the 4 nodes. Anywhere along the top 4 nodes where you're seeing that small 3/16 inch pod, that plant is in what we call R3, or beginning pod. So as you can see with this plant being in R3 with 3/16 inch pods in the upper, at least one of the upper foremost nodes, this plant is in R3. To move into R4, we need to have continued pod development with, as you see in this plant, we've got a 3/4 inch pod on the lower half of the plant. Once the pod development gets to 3/4 of an inch in length in one of the 4 uppermost nodes, the plant is now in what we call R4, or full pod. The reason that we really need to know the definition of the R3 and R4 stages is, in most cases, your herbicide and fungicide labels will only go through R3. Once you get into R4, very critical part of the plant development for yield, we need to really have all of our herbicide and fungicide applications complete. So this would be how you would stage an R3 to an R4 plant. So in conclusion today, the plants we looked at all came from the same field. You can have multiple stages within the same field. If you have 50% or more of the plants, for instance, in the R3 stage that we looked at, or beginning pod, I would call that field R3, which is really what we've got today. That R2 to R3 stage through R3 is an optimal time to be putting on your fungicide for plant health and disease prevention, as well as looking for insects like Japanese beetles, as well as soybean aphids for your insecticide applications along with the fungicide. If you have any other questions, please contact your local FS crop specialist, whether it be for plant staging or any other plant health needs you may have.